Riders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes. And this is my 6-month review on the DJI Avinox Ebike Motor and System. So riders, officially I've been testing the DJI Avinox motor for the last 6 months. And unofficially, I was a part of the private testing over a year ago. And it's been so interesting and a privilege to be a part of the private testing and see how this motor has evolved. And before we crack on with the review, a massive shout out to Schwalbe, the long-term sponsor of Sam's Bikes. As you'll see here, on my Amflow, I have the Magic Marys in the new radial construction. And riders, these tires are quite simply fantastic. I am getting around 10 or 15% more grip and traction out in the trails. I absolutely love them. Highly recommend you riders trying them, especially for winter. Now, let's crack on with the review. So first off, let's check out the impressive specs of the DJI Avinox motor. So it has 120 Newton meters of torque and 1,000 watts in peak power in the boost mode for 30 seconds. And then in the normal mode, so Eco, Trail and Turbo, it has 105 Newton meters of torque and 850 watts of peak power. Available with either a 600 watt hour battery or an 800, a 2-inch full color OLED touchscreen integrated display, 2 wireless remotes, and the motor weight is coming in at a very impressive 2.52 kilos. And the overall system weight with the 600 watt hour battery is coming in at 5.5 kilos. But obviously you can't test an e-bike motor without an e-bike. And I've been testing it on the Amflow PL Carbon, which is brand new, which is rolling on 29ers or is mullet compatible, full carbon frame, and the frame is coming in 2.27 kilos, 160 to travel up front, 150 in the rear, coming in at 19.2 kilos with the 600 watt hour battery, which is crazy light for the spec of the bike. And mine arrived out of the box with the 800 watt hour battery, confirmed weight 20.6 kilos. And as you see it right now, set up with 38s, 170, Öhlins coil, mullets, proper downhill Schwalbe tires, it's coming in at 22.6 kilos, which is crazy light for this build. And riders, if you want to see my 6-week review on the Amflow PL Carbon, well, there's a link in the show notes. So this is all sounding really impressive, isn't it, riders? But what do DJI know about e-bike motors and systems? And I thought that like a year ago when they contacted me for the private testing. And then I made the connection. They do know a little bit about making very powerful motors and batteries to fly their drones in the sky. And this little bad boy, my go-to drone, is weighing in at 249 grams, and I'm getting a flight time of 34 minutes, which is very impressive, and it shoots 4K footage. And if you've ever flown a DJI drone, they are super impressive. So I think they do know a little bit about making powerful motors, batteries, and great connectivity. Okay, enough geeking out on all the specs of the Avinox motor. How does it ride out in the trails? Well, riders, quite simply, it is in a league of its own. There is so much power on hand and such controllable power. So like, the most important thing for me when I saw the spec of this motor is, so I wonder how you control that power. But it really is super smooth on it. It picks up, it ramps up really fast, but it's not uncontrollable. Like, you can drop your cadence right down to like 30, 40, 50 and crawl up a really technical hill climb. And then when you get like a straight line of sight where you can really drop the power and get 1,000 watts of peak, it ramps up really smoothly, and you'd think like it almost wants to loop you out, but it doesn't. It controls that power really well. And if I compare it to something like the Bosch Race, which is also a hugely powerful motor, the Bosch Race for me is a little bit like a wild horse or a wild animal. Like, it really is a little bit out of control in those corners. But for me, like the pedal stroke of the DJI, it kind of like, it does mimic your pedal stroke. And also you have that 42 points of engagement from the Hall sensor, which really, as you slow that cadence down or speed, it does follow your pedal stroke. And if you come out of those tight corners and you drop your cadence down, it will follow how you're riding. It is a very impressive motor. And if we're talking about speed and power, and we compare it to the Bosch Race, well, it is in a league of its own. There is a lot of power on hand here. And one thing I want to talk about, riders, is to access that full 1000 watts of peak power or the 800 watts of peak power, you do need to lift those cadences up. And I think it starts to pull really at about 70 up to about 120 RPM of cadence. But on the flip side, it does pull really well around 50 or 60, like it sits into that cadence where it's not taking too much energy from the rider. What about the overrun? So we have 2 meters or up to 2 meters of overrun, which is fully tunable in every assistant mode, which I absolutely love. And I've wanted that for years. So you can tune every mode. And the way the Avinox application and system handles the delivery of the overrun, I find it very natural. You know, like even when I have it set at 2 meters, it doesn't seem to like throw me into a corner because the Hall sensor's getting that 42 points of data. It really is controllable and manageable. So now let's talk about how the Avinox motor is over the limiter, so over 25 k's an hour in Europe, and when you run out of battery. I'm gonna say the Avinox motor is probably about average. There is a bit of drag. It's not the best, and it's definitely not the worst. And what about sound of the motor going up and down the mountain? So we're gonna head out with a bit of POV. I'm gonna have a lab mic here. I'm gonna turn off the noise cancellation in the mic. So what you hear is exactly what you get. Let's go check it out. Okay, now for the sound test. So we're going up a reasonably steep fire road and the motor is off. Now we're in auto. Now we're in eco. Now we're in trail. Now we're in turbo. And now we're in boost. And I think you would agree with me, riders, over the sound of the bike on the trail, you can barely hear the motor. So it is pretty much next to silent. And now for the downhill, and I know you riders want to know if the motor has a rattle. I'm going to say it does have a small rattle. It's not as prominent as the Shimano EPA 01 or the Bosch, and it's not as consistent, that rattle. So it's not consistently rattling. Sometimes on big hard G-outs, I do hear a rattle, but it's not a deal breaker for me. But riders, you make up your own mind. I'm gonna hit a pretty nasty, fast, chunky downhill. You let me know what you think of the sound. Now onto appearance and integration. I think the Avinox motor is a great looking motor for its power, its weight and its size. It's definitely one of the best looking full powered e-bike motors in its class. I think the integration's really good here on the Amflow. The remotes, for me the remotes are best in class. They're wireless, they make your cockpit look nice and clean, and they've got a great tactile feel, just great remotes. And the display, it's touchscreen, works really well. It could be a bit more classy in my opinion. I might prefer to see it a little bit more low profile. And the charging port, amazing, best in class as well. And now onto functionality. And when you turn on the Avinox system for the first time, it's very clear there's a lot of thought and development gone into this system. So it's powered, or the brain of the whole system is the 2-inch display here. It's got 4 faces or pages, and you also can add more pages, and you have up to, I believe, almost 50 points of data that you can add into the system. It's like having an inbuilt Garmin. You can record your rides, and you can also add a heart rate monitor. The display will also accept a nano SIM card, which I believe you can actually attach to your existing phone plan, so it's not going to cost you any money. Additionally, the display is a touchscreen, so you can swipe through all the pages and menus, even wearing gloves. And if you don't want to take your hands off the handlebars, you actually have a right remote that you can swipe through all the pages. I didn't think I'd want or need 2 remotes, but I actually really enjoy having 2 remotes because you can so easily and quickly swipe through all the pages. And check this out, I love this feature. You can actually connect the DJI Action 5 to the Avinox motor and system. You can start and stop your recording with the remotes. You can see that you're recording on the display, and you can also overlay all the GPS data to the footage at a later date. Now, when you're ready to go out for a ride, you obviously turn your system on and you're met with automatic, eco, trail, turbo, and then if you want the 1000 watts of peak power and 120 newtons of torque, you press down on the plus button for 2 seconds and you'll access that for 30 seconds. Now, I've been testing it a lot. I've never overheated the system, and I was riding it. My initial testing was in Madrid in 35 degrees, and I did get a little bit boost drunk. I really love to hit it a lot because it's a lot of fun, a lot of power, and I never overheated it. And I also want to let you riders know each assistant mode is tunable with 5 settings in the application. The automatic mode, when I started testing it 6 months ago, you couldn't tune. And I thought that was a little bit annoying because I found it hard to get an exercise. I wanted it a bit more tunable. And guess what? DJI have already implemented that. So now you can tune the automatic mode. Also, obviously it has a walk mode, which is really powerful and works very well. And what I love most about the walk mode is, let's say you're going up a really steep climb and you're obviously pressing down on the walk button to go up, and you slip on a rock and your finger comes off the walk button. It actually goes into like a auto clamp or handbrake mode, so your bike stays exactly where it was, which I absolutely love. And also, check out this. You can change gears. So if you want to start up on a steep climb and you want to be in gear 1, you can change your gears. It's quite simple. You put it in the walk mode, put the front brake on, just lift the bike up, hit down on walk, and you can change your gears. So obviously with any new system on the market, there's going to be a question of reliability. And riders, I'm happy to say that over the last 6 months, I've had absolutely 0 problems with the Avinox e-bike motor. No fails, no connectivity, no overheating. It's run perfectly. And a lot of you riders out there have asked, what about the waterproofing? So it's rated at IP66, which means it provides protection against high pressure 12.5mm water jets. The test includes the enclosure being subject to 100 litres per minute of water volume with the pressure of 100 kPa at a distance of 3 meters for at least 3 minutes. So what happens if you do have a problem with the motor, remote or display? Well, all the warranty claims are going to go through the Amflow dealer network, which right now is in Germany, Australia, China and the UK. If you know anything about DJI as a company, you might think that they've got a great application to go with the Avinox motor. And you'd be right in thinking that. So the most important part for me is the tunability. And they've got loads of tunable options in the application. Also, you can attach a heart rate. You can do auto recording, very much like Garmin. You also have lots of security features. You can put in your password with the touchscreen, which I absolutely love. And if someone does walk off and steal your bike, the alarm sounds, which is quite loud, the motor locks, so puts in a clamping mode, and you can track your bike through the iPhone. And lastly, the over-the-air firmware updates. So pretty much every week I'm getting a firmware update alert on the application and it updates the bike. So that shows me that DJI are constantly improving the system. And clearly, no e-bike motor test is complete without my extreme range test, where I put each e-bike motor and system in the highest assistant mode and loop my favorite downhill until I run out of battery. We were doing it obviously with the Avinox motor and the 800 watt-hour battery, and these are the results. We got 2 hours and 41 minutes in the saddle, average heart rate 126 beats per minute, 1,125 calories burnt, 37.35 kilometers, and the most important metric or statistic for me is vertical meters climbed, because they're electric mountain bikes and we're riding them in the mountains. So we got 1,776 meters of vertical climbing, which I think is very impressive for the power of this motor. I also want to let you riders know that I did the whole test in the turbo mode, so the 105 Newton meters. And if you do get a little bit boost drunk and hit the 30 seconds of boost, more often, you are going to get less range. I'm also happy to let you riders know that that the Avinox motor finished in the top 4 e-bike systems for efficiency out in the mountains. And for me and my style of riding, an 800 watt-hour battery is absolutely perfect. I wouldn't be going for the 600. And if you're the type of rider that likes to go out and do absolute missions, well, take the fast charger along in your backpack. This is 12 amp fast charger. It can charge the 800 watt-hour battery from 0 to 75% in 1.5 hours. And now what you've been waiting for, riders, how does it compare to all the other major e-bike motors and systems on the market? Quite simply, the DJI Avinox motor blows them out of the water. It really is a step above. It makes a lot of the other systems seem a little bit dated, and definitely the market's going to be chasing down DJI. And not all gravy. The things I don't like about the Avinox motor or I think could be improved. Well, there's not that much. They've done a fantastic job. When you're tuning all the assistant modes, I'd like to see them open up a little bit more. You know, like at the moment you have like 15 sliders, but in Eco, Trail and Turbo, they actually only allow you to move it like 4 or 5. I'd like to see them open that up a bit more. I'd also like to see the automatic mode a little bit more tunable as well. Like I love to go out with my heart rate monitor and sit in that fat burning mode. And I'd like to see something like micro tune or fine tune what Specialized and Shimano have, because I love to go up and down like 10% increments and just like regulate my heart rate with the e-bike motor. I'd also really like to see a 400 watt-hour battery and a range extender, a 250 watt-hour range extender, because with the size of this motor and the weight, 2.5 kilos, it's lighter than the Shimano EP8. And if they brought out a 400 watt-hour battery and a range extender, then it would open up the options for really super light bikes like maybe 16, 17 kilos, and allow the bike manufacturers to really spec out their bikes in a different way. I'd also love to see presets or profiles that I can share with my friends, because you know, like when you really get a nice setup and you got one for the power hour, one for the fitness, one if you're riding with like super light bikes with less power, it's really good to be able to change those profiles really quickly. Okay riders, I hope you're still with me. Now on to the conclusion. Well, I've had a fantastic time over the last 6 months on the Avinox motor and system, and they have done a fantastic job. Completely knocked it out of the park. And I'm going to say it's the next generation of motors and systems, because like with the 600 watt-hour battery coming in at 19.2 kilos and 1,000 watts of peak power, that's definitely like blown everyone out of the market. And it'll be so interesting to see what happens over the next year, if they have more development and what goes on, what companies adapt to the DJI and put it in their bikes. It's going to be a very interesting time. And riders, I hope you enjoyed this review. And like always, if you have any questions on the Avinox motor or the Amflow or any other e-bike motor or system on the market, hit me on the comments and I'd love to help, and we'll see you soon.